I'm gonna cut straight to the chase. I'm both worried and excited about the Void 3.0 rework. What you're seeing in the background here is two of my all-time favorite builds in the history of Destiny. The Warlock build I've been using since back in Destiny 1. And this Hunter build, when it was discovered, quickly became my second most played combo of all time. And from this stems my concerns. Bungie has shown that they aren't afraid to entirely throw away or vault content. And I know, just mentioning the Destiny content vault will start a comment train of berating Bungie like they're some kind of Saturday morning cartoon villain, but it's at least worth mentioning here in a more professional sense. Bungie is willing to take content out of Destiny in order to shuffle new stuff in, and with Void 3.0 arriving in about 60 days, I'm left wondering what is going to happen to some of these builds and some of the builds you have come to know and love. At the same time though, Bungie has shown that they're capable of doing good stuff. Who remembers what Top Tree Dawnblade did before it got Celestial Fire? Show of hands. So you get what I'm saying. This mixed in with the ongoing conversation of what is quote unquote IP defining within Destiny, there's a massive question mark. Let's start down the list. I'm going to start with the possible good stuff and the stuff that we already know about. This is coming from a news article at This Week at Bungie that we got to see from a while ago. It gave us a bit of a snippet as to some of the changes that are coming to all of the subclasses Hunter, Warlock, and Titan, but it didn't reveal everything. And we've also gotten to see some stuff from trailers, so, bits and pieces here and there. First of all, it should be obviously stated, but some of you might not know, this new system coming to Void 3.0 with the Witch Queen will work very similarly to Stasis. There's not going to be any new darkness subclasses nor new aspects or fragments, but the Void subclasses as a whole are going to be treated similarly to the current Stasis layout where we have these aspects and fragments. The difference being that we'll actually get to pick super, so I can run like Tether or I can run Spectral Blades. Void 3.0 will also operate like Stasis in that it will use keywords. For Stasis, we have Shatter, Slow, and Freeze, and in Void 3.0 we will have Suppression, Weaken, and Volatile. These are these negative effects, as well as positive words, positive keywords, Void Overshield, Invisibility, and Devour. With some of the more explicit stuff we did get, Hunters are getting a complete rework to Quiver. Currently, Quiver allows you to fire multiple shots whenever you press the button, and essentially just gives you a counting down timer for how many shots you get to fire. With this rework, Quiver will fire a whole bunch of shots out all at once, presumably making this kind of similar to a long-range shotgun or a multi-shot arrow similar to something like Trinity Ghoul, rather than just being something you can fire in multiple successions. It also is getting a new aspect which reads, defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target grants invisibility and true sight being the ability to see through walls. After performing a stylish execution, quote unquote, your next melee attack while invisible weakens enemies. Titans are getting a new barricade augmentation, which is currently something that doesn't exist in the game outside of exotics, which is called Overwatch. Cast a Void Empowered Barricade to grant Void Overshield to yourself and nearby allies. The Empowered Barricade slowly regenerates the Void Overshield of allies bunkering behind it. And they're also getting a new melee ability that's called Shield Toss, where you can hurl your shield towards an enemy, and the shield can ricochet off of multiple enemy surfaces, etc. And it'll grant a small chunk of Void Overshield with each hit. And last but of course not least, Warlocks. They're getting a new melee called Pocket Singularity, which is a projectile-based melee, which launches a tracking, unstable ball of void energy that detonates when it's nearby enemies. It'll push targets away from the blast and make them volatile. And it's also getting a new aspect, which is metal as hell, called Child of the Old Gods. Cast your Rift to summon a sentient black hole, which hovers at your side, waiting for a target. It will launch itself at enemies, then begin to siphon their energy and weaken them, refunding their life force back to you as either grenade and melee energy if you're using a healing rift, or health if you're using Empowering Rift. Defeating enemies who are being siphoned by the child will refund some Rift energy. Obviously, without getting to sit down and test this, we won't get to know to the exact specifics as to how effective these will actually be, or if those will even be worth our time to even try switching to. But the build crafting possibilities of these are, of course, the biggest incentive coming to the new changes to Void 3.0. I mean, just think of having a Titan with a Void Overshield and possibly some way of triggering Devour and getting their health back could play into some very tanky or even kind of like berserker style build. This also gives Bungie an opportunity to rebalance underused or lopsided representations of the subclasses in the meta. To quote one of the best songs of all time, look at this graph. This shows the class representation for popularity within PvP. I know this isn't going to be representative of everybody as a whole, and I know that generally I'll get the 13 people who main like the most underused stuff in the comment section, but I digress. This gives you a general idea of what's popular within the game. So getting to rework some of this stuff to open up new possibilities just for viability reasons is exciting as well. Another good thing that can come from Void 3.0 is, of course, new toys, new exotics, new abilities, whatever it may be, new stuff to play with, always going to be a fun time. And with that comes new interactions. Previously underperforming gear, like perhaps Mask of the Quiet One, Knucklehead Radar, Foe Tracer, Stronghold, Nothing Manacles, Winter's Guile, you get the idea, might have a serious place if they have something to bounce off of a little bit harder. For example, maybe Mask of the Quiet One is fantastic when you're able to give yourself a Void Overshield consistently, allowing you to get your abilities back consistently. I have to temper all of this with my concerns and my expectations. Cautious optimism, which seems to be the motto of Destiny. We are unable to see the full picture, and with that, I'm concerned that Bungie is going to decide what players want. I'm concerned that Bungie's going to sit down and take a look at all of the subclasses and say, hey, you know what? Nova Bomb, for whatever reason, isn't IP defining. We're gonna get rid of that. We're gonna change that to be all Nova Warp, which I know is basically backwards, but I hope you get the idea. Put yourself in the shoes of these very devoted but more niche players such as myself, who really like Nova Warp and really like Top Tree Nightstalker, despite them not being necessarily the most popular thing in the PvP meta. I really hope that Bungie adds and doesn't substitute things that we have come to know and love. Subtle tweaks that could come to the already balanced subclasses could ruin particular interactions. How annoying would it be if you were to try to run a similar build to what you're seeing on my Hunter, but because of the new Void 3.0 changes, you actually couldn't slot the same type of passive, so you couldn't get like the increased sprint speed with everything else. You had to make that sacrifice. It's not the end of the world, but it is definitely a little annoying. And I did mention this already, outright removal or quote-unquote changing of abilities is always going to be a touchy topic. For example, in this very TWAB, Bungie mentioned stylus execution as opposed to flawless execution. If you're a Spectral Blades main, would you be okay if Bungie removed the ability to get invisibility and true sight from a crouched headshot kill? Would you be okay if they took that ability away from you in lieu of something else? Do you trust Bungie enough to be able to do something like that? And the last concern is that Bungie is going to leave more of the stuff that sucks in the dust. When's the last time that you've taken out the Skyburner's Oath? I know, a bit of a meme pick, but realistically, we've seen some touches to them, we've seen some tweaks to them, which have been mostly positive. But with the game getting bigger and bigger, it would be a damn shame for exotics to basically start to become a weird version of a golden legendary weapon. And I guess, of course, I should throw in here that it would really suck if Bungie released these like Stasis and they were just way too hot. But Bungie made it pretty clear that they're not ever going to release something as powerful as Stasis on first launch. A glint of hope we see in the TWAB that these abilities are not going to be removed is this very last line talking about Void 3.0. We hope that this preview sparks your curiosity and gets you thinking about cool new Void builds. Have you ever wanted to run Spectral Blades with Vanishing Step, Ward of Dawn and Controlled Demolition, Handheld Supernova and Devour? There are a lot of new possibilities, and as we get closer to the Witch Queen, we'll be back in future TWABs to talk more about supers, fragments, and grenades you'll be mixing and matching. Bungie, I pray I still get to play the stuff I love. I trust you on this, but I think all of us are a little concerned. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like my type of ranting, be sure to subscribe. Bless your faces, and deuces.